Bapak Ibu sekalian, para insan pendidikan yang kami hormati, kita jumpa lagi di Vox Populi Institute YouTube. Kita akan memulai sebuah segmen yang namanya GEN, Global Education Network. Ini kita mulai dengan sesi pertama, yaitu di mana kami akan mengundang para pendidik, para tokoh, para pakar pendidikan dari mancanegara untuk sharing bagaimana pendidikan di negaranya, tantangan apa yang dihadapi, terutama dalam menghadapi era digitalisasi, era masyarakat 5.0, dan juga pasca pandemi. Kali ini kita akan diawali dulu webinar seri pertama ini dengan menghadirkan dua tokoh pendidikan dari Filipina, khususnya pendidikan swasta, yaitu seorang pastor Katolik, Pastor Mauricio, dan juga sahabat saya namanya Doris Ferrer. Ladies and gentlemen, Vox Populi Institute is happy to present to you a series of webinar called Global Education Network that we will invite speakers from all over the world to speak about education in their own countries, what are the challenges, what are the things that they've done, and especially in facing the new era, the digital era, the technology era, society 5.0, and of course, the pandemic situation. Now we are happy that we and honor that we have two guests from the Philippines. First, I would like to call Miss Doris Fernandez Ferrer. She is the Executive Director of the Private Education Assistance Committee, the trustee of the Fund for Assistance to Private Education, or FAPE. More significantly, PEAC manages the longest-running PPP, Public-Private Partnership Education, in the country. The education service contracting program that was legislated in 1989 as the GASTPE law. And in 2016, PEAC was again contracted by the Department of Education to co-implement the voucher program for senior high school. PEAC is also a PRC accredited CPD provider, providing training program for teachers and school leaders. Now, Doris was also recently elected Director and Corporate Secretary of the Philippines Accrediting Association of Schools, Colleges, and Universities, or PAASCU. She served as the Executive Director of the Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines, CEAP, from May 2009 to October 2014. Prior to joining CEAP, she was connected with the Saint Scholastic College for 18 years as high school physics teachers, Dean of Student Affairs, Associate Professor in the School of Arts and Sciences, and Department Chairperson of the Natural Science Department in the college unit. Doris Ferrer graduated cum laude in the Bachelor of Science Physics for Teachers program of the Philippine Normal University, or PNU, in consortium with the La Salle University. A recipient of a Department Science and Technology Scholarship Grant in 2015, PNU recognized Doris as one of its distinguished alumni. She finished her Master's in Education, major in Physics from the La Salle University. In January 2014, she finished an executive program on public policy and private sector development at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy of the National University of Singapore. In October 2017, she finished an executive program on the Essentials of Policy Department, also from LKY School of Public Policy. She's currently completing her PhD in Education major in Educational Leadership and Management, our executive program, also from DLSU. Now I would like to invite Ms. Ferrer to share her wisdom, share her knowledge. The time is yours.
Thank you, Indra. It is my privilege to share with all of you what we are doing here in the Philippines. And I think the introduction also gave you a hint of what it is that the PAC actually does. It works with government for education vouchers or education subsidies, and that is basically the work that we do. But because of that work, we are able to evaluate the schools, whether they are compliant with standards, the quality of their programs, etc. So this presentation is entitled Developing Private Education Together, Identifying Priority Issues and Ways Forward. But it will be on the level of the entire landscape, private side, because the next speaker will talk about a specific school and how it has responded to the challenges of the pandemic, and of course, not just challenges of the pandemic, but also thinking about how we can better prepare our students in a future that we all are rather uncertain of. So here we have the composition of the PAC and the executive order that created the PAC identified who the members are. But significantly, as was mentioned in the introduction, one of the biggest work that it did was pilot an education voucher program, which eventually became a law and which now is being implemented by the Department of Education in partnership with the PAC. The chair of the PAC is the DepEd Secretary, and in all our meetings, we have an undersecretary who attends. The Vice President has also attended with us because what we are advocating is really public-private complementarity. But all of this happened earlier on, before the pandemic. So just to introduce to you know, what the Private Education Assistance Committee is all about. But during the pandemic, we actually drafted our strategic plan, and we have entitled the document Future-Proofing Private Education for the Next Decade. The idea really was that we were looking at the 21st century, we were looking at the fourth industrial revolution, we were looking at all of these advances in technology and how to make our students really future ready. That is what we thought of as our mission, our vision for the PAC and all the private schools. Obviously, as the organization stands for Private Education Assistance Committee, that is our reason for being, to help the private schools in the Philippines. But right now, we really have problem with enrollment because the enrollment is declining rather seriously. The students and their parents, for obvious reasons, so are moving to the public schools because of the difficulty with having to pay for tuition and other fees in private schools. We also have problems with teachers, not just the quality of the teachers, but even the teachers migrating from the private schools to the public schools because of the very big difference in salaries between public and private schools. Again, these are all issues prior to the pandemic. But during the pandemic, this all of a sudden, it was so obvious that we were bleeding that about 500 K-6 schools closed during the pandemic. And that was because when I was asked by Congress, we do not have any support for K-6 private. The subsidies that we are co-implementing with the Department of Education were for junior high school, grade 7 to 10, and for senior high school, 11, 12. But there was no support for K-6. So these are the strategic directions that we have identified during the strategic planning. As you can see, the strategic direction 4 talks about increased support for private education. We have to do research, that's strategic direction 3. But we'll have to ensure that when we manage the education vouchers, we strengthen how we manage the programs via use of systems, and ensuring also that there's some confidence in the work that we do. We got ourselves ISO certified. We're actually working towards a second certification for our information security management system. But all of that meant to strengthen our management of the programs that we are co-implementing with the Department of Education. We also do a lot of capacity building. I think the introduction said that about the PAC and that we have to make sure that the organization is ready to take on all of this work. So this is what we did last year. For example, the number of grantees that we were that we had in the programs last year was 2.1 million. So it is really not correct to say that government is not helping private ed, but possibly it is a more accurate statement if we say that the support is not enough. Or as the ADB report that came out in 2020 says, states, it is more cost efficient for government to increase the vouchers than build classrooms. Because even the last PISA test that we took in the country, the private school students actually scored higher. This is the amount of the subsidies that we process. When we say we process, the part of the work that we do really is we quality assure the schools. We process their billing documents. In other words, we validate whether the grantees are really students with documents, and that when all of the billing documents are in order, then DepEd pays the schools. So we're not handling the funds per se. It's still with DepEd, the Department of Education. But what we do is really process the billing documents. If we do not give a go signal, then DepEd will not release the funds. So these are the number of schools that are participating in the program. And we're reaching a lot of the schools. But later on, I'll show you the data for the entire private ed. It really is very small compared to how many students there are in the public schools. So pre-pandemic, we already had the problem in the Philippines. We already have realized that our students are not learning even while they are in school. I think this was validated by the 2022 World Bank report when it said that we do not only have schooling deprivation, we also have learning deprivation, meaning the students are in school but are not learning. Those who are not in school are assumed not learning. We also have a problem with non-readers being sent to high school. I think this was a research that was done by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, and it really strongly urges the Department of Education not to send non-readers to high school. Again, this was validated by the 2022 World Bank report when it said that 91% of all our grade 5 are not able to read and comprehend a simple text. Meaning, or cannot read a simple text with understanding. Okay, that is of course a World Bank estimate, but it is to our mind rather close, to what we experience among our students. We also have here, for example, the result of licensure exams, which is a 31% passing rate. These are our teachers graduating from teacher education institutions and then taking the licensure exam, and we only have a passing rate of 31%. Now, this is very low because we even have higher passing rate for other professions like engineering and even medicine, and this is how low it is for left. Now, this is what actually triggered for the Philippines the need to convene an EdCom 2. Right now, we have the House and the Senate coming together to convene an educational commission for education, an educational commission that's EdCom, in order to evaluate our education system and try to recommend solutions. We already did an EdCom 1 in 1991, but with these results, PISA 2018, the 2019 teams, the Southeast Asian primary learning metrics, which showed that we were all, at the bottom. And this was the conclusion that was made by one of our NGOs in the Philippines, Philippine Business for Education, that we are in crisis because this is the data that we've seen. Our grade 5 students do not meet their proficiency levels. Junior high school students move up despite having low proficiency. Our senior high graduates graduate with a proficiency level of grade 6. So if this is not a crisis, then we do not know what it is, what to call it. So that's where we are. So when this report came out, to us, it was like, to me personally, it was not a surprise anymore. because we've seen all the tests and we really are faring very, very badly. So I think you are familiar with the learning poverty document of the World Bank, and that it means that, it's a proportion of your children who are unable to read a simple text with understanding by age 10, and our rating was at 91. That is why when Indra was talking about, that this session will talk about the fourth industrial revolution and how to prepare our children and all that, in one forum, which I also was invited to speak, and when I was asked what is it that will revolutionize education in the Philippines, my answer was just go back to the basics. No? Just make sure that our children are learning foundational reading at the minimum, because if they're not able to read, it's like you already have designated them as failures for the rest of their lives. No? So this is really very, very disturbing, no, for the Philippines. And those foundational learning will translate into low level of skills, which in turn will reduce productivity, etc. This is all coming from World Bank. And the EDCOM too has been very, very vigilant in looking at the report and even discussing this with World Bank. So right now we're moving towards the recommendations that were given, that it is not enough for our children to return to school because the curriculum and teaching must adjust to the students' learning needs. You might also want to know that we actually had the longest lockdown, I think, in the world, right? So because of the pandemic, we closed our schools and we resorted to modular distance learning because many of our schools also do not have internet connectivity. That's why we were using modules for the students. So you can just imagine what teaching learning is happening when all the children would have our modules, which their parents collect from the school. And then after they are completed, and of course our suspicion is the parents are the ones who answer all of these modules, they are given back to the schools. So we've also adopted what World Bank has also proposed as the rapid framework. And all of this now, we're looking at best practices of our schools. But I probably will just end with the private education data. Just for your consumption, this is how we look like. At the elementary level, about 12 million are in public schools. And only 786,645 are in private schools. So this is how small we are compared to public. Okay, that is why when the private schools still closed at K to 6, all the more was it becoming really, really obvious that even at our share of 6%, that wasn't even stable. See, our parents are still moving their children to the public schools. But look at our data for junior high. We actually go up to 13% of the entire pie at 1.1 million. But public is at 7.5. Okay? But if you will compare this to the more than 12 million earlier, you must have seen also the dropout rate. See, our students start dropping out at grade 4. And that to us is also very pathetic. No? We were saying that if your intervention is a junior high school, and our students already have dropped out at grade 4, which is where the dropping out usually happen. And we also have data that it is the males who drop out at a higher rate than the females, then we actually have a problem with the future of our children. And then when we introduce senior high school with the K-12 law, so that is grades 11 and 12, we have 2.5 million in public schools and 1.2 million in private schools. Again, we can see the dropout, meaning not all grade 10 completers actually move to senior high school. So that to us is really problematic. That's why in the first meeting of EDCOM 2, and very fortunately, I was invited to be a member of the advisory council. It all went back to ensuring that our children are learning the foundational skills, that we have to focus on basic education and even on early childhood care and development, earlier even than kindergarten, which was legislated as universal kindergarten sometime in 2011, 2012, when we started adopting kindergarten at grade 5. So I will go to the slide on EDCOM. Okay, so part of our ways forward now, really, on a national level, so this is not just PAC, is to convene the EDCOM. And the EDCOM, as I mentioned earlier, was created by law in order to make a 3-year comprehensive national assessment of the Philippine education sector's performance. And we have 5 members of Congress, 5 members of the House of Representatives, 5 senators. So that comprises the 10-member EDCOM. So these are all the commissioners. And then after that, we have members of the Advisory Council and then members from academe who are members of standing committee. And when we created the standing committees, we started with basic education, including early childhood care and development. We also have higher education as a focus, teacher education as a focus, because we have realized that the quality of our teachers is really, really problematic. Governance and finance is also one area that we intend to look at, and then technical vocational education. So these are the standing committees created by EDCOM. So right now, EDCOM has started working. This was in January 2023. Hopefully, and in that meeting, we were all saying, let's not have an EDCOM 3. EDCOM 2 is obviously EDCOM 2 because in 1991, we had EDCOM 1. And when we reviewed the documents of EDCOM 1, we saw that many of its recommendations were unimplemented. That's why we were teasing each other. We were saying, we don't need to write a report. We just follow what that EDCOM 1 report was, just change the dates, and that's about it. So, and that was like 30 years ago. So it's very disturbing, but as educators and as teachers, and I think all of you would share the same feeling as us, that we cannot afford to let our children down, and that despite the difficulties, we'll just have to keep on going. So thank you for listening, and I hope you were able to get a glimpse of what's happening in the Philippines. But as you can see, we've not really thrown in the towel. We are moving forward to ensure that we're able to turn things around for our education system. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Ferrer, for your insightful presentation. It seems like in the Philippines and Indonesia is facing the same problem. A lot of the problems are the same, like low level of literacy. And we have had a lot of studies before, like recommendation, even from OECD, from World Bank, that never been implemented. We change our minister, but keep doing the same thing basically. That's one of the challenges. Okay, we will get back to you. I know that there'll be a lot of questions later on. I will invite our second speaker. Our second speaker is Father Mauricio Tumamao Ulep. He is a religious missionary priest of the Congregation of Missionaries, Son of the Immaculate Heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary, or CMF, familiarly known as Claretians. Born and raised in Ilocos Norte, Father Mao, as he is fondly called, started his journey in the religious life at Claret Formation Center, now known as St. Anthony Mary Claret College, where he graduated cum laude and proceeded to his theological studies at the Loyola School of Theology, Ateneo de Manila University, where he finished bachelor's in sacred theology, magna cum laude, and master's in theological studies. Prior to his ordination to the priesthood on May 31st, 2006, he was assigned at the St. Anthony Mary Claret College and at the college seminary as assistant rector, professor, and finance administrator. He had a training on seminary formation in Barcelona, Spain, and on guidance and counseling for formation in Quezon City. In 2008, he was assigned as acting parish priest in Tumahubong, Basilan Province, and then moved to Tungawan, Zamboanga, Sibugay as assistant parish priest. From May 2010 till May 2017, he was appointed as the school director of Claret School of Zamboanga City, during which he became the chair of the Commission on Claretian Education, a board member of the Zamboanga Basilian Sulu Tawi-Tawi Association of Private Schools, PAA SCU accreditor, PAC certifier, and monitor. In 2017, he moved to Claret School of Quezon City as a school director and was elected trustee at large at the CEAP National Board. Currently, he is the vice president of the Catholic Education Association of the Philippines. Father Mao, the time is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Indra. I'd like to give you a glimpse of how Claret School of Quezon City responded to the challenges in education, primarily brought about by the pandemic that we underwent, and of course, the many challenges that it actually brought in our lives, and how we have traversed the pandemic and how we continue on during this day. In Claret School of Quezon City, we have responded by making use of the Microsoft 365. And so we shifted to code, the Claret Operative Distance Education, which uses Microsoft 365 and its bundle, particularly MS Teams, in terms of engaging our learners more during the pandemic. And we had the goal of approaching, or our approach was focused rather on the most essential, with the goal of producing appropriate effect in the teaching learning process. So we made sure that we only kept the essentials during the time of the pandemic. And so in order to get everyone on board during the school year 2020, 2021, and 2021, 2022, we ensured that orientations would happen, and that we had trainings to all personnel, parents, and students on the use of the platform. And also we had the availability of the EdTech team care and support, so that anytime during the day, office hours, that they have problems with regard to the use of MS Teams and Microsoft, there'd be available care and support for them, for students, for the teachers, and for the parents as well. And we had to strike a balance of making use of the synchronous sessions and the asynchronous sessions. As you well know, it was quite difficult for us to navigate during the pandemic, and we had some fears also from among ourselves. And so we managed to focus on the synchronous classes during the morning sessions only, and ensure that there'd be health breaks in between classes, and the maximum number of hours have been limited, so that the afternoon sessions, which were asynchronous in nature, would be dedicated to self-study and the exploration of other readings, videos, vlogs, podcasts, and other recorded lectures and other sources. In the afternoon, we also dedicate this time for student and teacher consultation for possible intervention to our students. Likewise, during the pandemic, we ensured that we afforded whole school support system. So it's a support system that we have given to the students, to our teachers, to our personnel, and of course, support also not only given to the parents, but also from the parents themselves. Our support to the students were given, all of these support were given through the student services. So we have the Student Development Center, which is the guidance center. And so we continued with the commitment to ensure that all our students would have positive emotional disposition. And so mental health was very important as a matter of concern during the pandemic. And so we provided online check-ins, referrals, virtual conferences, follow-up sessions, and group guidance activities for students. So there were strengths-based activities given to students. Likewise, the Instructional Media Center, the library, made extra effort to support the academic program. And so we made use of the online resources, which were accessible to our students 24/7. So there were online resources that include research databases, ebooks, e-journals, magazine subscriptions, and discovery service to libraries. So all of these were done in order that the students would continue on learning. And of course, the clinic provided medical care through its online consultations, medical bulletins, medical counseling, and follow-up routine on medical concerns and cases. And for the parents, we emphasize during this time the importance of school-home partnership. So we had constant dialogue and communication, updating of the parents using all the available portals of the school. And at the same time, we offered seminars for parents to help them assist their children in their online classes. And of course, we engaged the CSQCPTA, the association, in order that they can also help us disseminate information and assist other parents during the pandemic. During the time of the pandemic, we made sure that all our personnel, because they're the ones giving or offering service to our students, we made sure that all of them too were supported in their mental health. So in coordination with the HRMDO, we offered seminars and also individual consultations to them. The clinic also offered online medical consultations, posted medical bulletins, and gathered data from our personnel on their health status. And we have a concern about connectivity in the Philippines. So we had ensured that technical support was provided with the teachers through the technical working group and the ICT. And even in the evenings, there would be some calls for assistance on how they have to maneuver or go about the difficulties in the technical side of using the internet and MS Teams. In the grade school levels, substitute teachers or teacher assistants were assigned in order to take over in cases that the main subject teacher is unable to deliver due to connectivity concerns. And our teachers too, and all some other key staff were given telecommuting allowance, and special aid were given to our personnel through the help of the Claretian Missionaries and the Alumni Association. Hazard pay was also given to some employees. Together with all the ongoing trainings for all our personnel, particularly our teachers, we have to continue on with the formation programs online. As a Catholic school, we continued on with the online masses. We continued on with formation programs like recollections and retreats. We had novenas, triduum, prayers, spiritual counseling, and other spiritual activities designed by the faith education and enrichment department of our school. And that helped our school community go through the pandemic. And of course, online student clubs and organizations for greater student engagement and collaboration were in place. We have a lot of school clubs, student clubs in the grade school, in the high school. We had also extracurricular organizations. So all of this actually helped our students get engaged and collaborate with other students, even at this in an online platform. And during the pandemic, we continued on with our partnerships. And so with the parish, we were able to do outreach activities during the time of the pandemic. And of course, with the CSQC PTA, we had the vaccination rollout program in the school. We also continued on with our accreditation in the school. It was quite difficult to go through the accreditation process during the pandemic, but we were able to do that because we would want to ensure quality even as we navigated during the pandemic. So we passed the resurvey visit of the Philippine Accrediting Association of Schools, Colleges, and Universities. And during this current year, 2022-2023, and in the coming years, we opted to use Claret Operative Distance Education Plus, or we call it Code Plus. The Plus here is now open for student engagement on a face-to-face manner. So with the transition to Code Plus, were able to do hybrid learning in a rotation or alternate model, combining remote and in-person instruction. So the school combined both remote online and in-person learning to improve student experience and prepare everyone for an eventual return to full face-to-face setup. And of course, we focused on all of the highly engaging learning activities like experiments, group collaboration, guided practice, and of course, we ensured that summative assessments are done face-to-face. And all other activities were done to make them experience again. This is important to take note. Their social connection with peers and their teachers, because it matters that our young ones, our learners especially, would learn to engage properly with other people. And as we continued on with the use of the online platform, essential facility, which was an essential facility for curriculum planning and implementation, all others were constantly posted in the MS Teams. So now we continue preparing for a full face-to-face class, for face-to-face classes for next school year 2023-2024. And we have prepared all our facilities. We have ensured that there are filters in all classrooms and big spaces. We have safety protocols in place, and we have oriented all our parents, students, and all the faculty and staff and the parents as well. And of course, within this time of the pandemic and even beyond, we continue on experiencing a volatile, uncertain, and complex and ambiguous world. So we remain flexible as a school community in exploring new possibilities and new ideas in a communal way. I think that the emphasis here is on the communal way. We have to make sure that we collaborate more as a school community while keeping the essentials of our mission of transformative education and the foundations of our faith and spirituality. Of course, this is how we were able to navigate during the pandemic, and we continue on during this school year and beyond. This is Claret School of Quezon City, and we say this is where knowledge is best with virtue. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, Father Mao, for your insightful presentation. Now I will call both of our speakers, Ms. Ferrer and Father Mao. Okay. Let's start with Father Mao first. I will invite to the audience to ask questions as well. Bapak Ibu sekalian, jika ingin bertanya, bisa ketik pertanyaannya di YouTube. Okay, Father. Our first question is how big is your school? You know, like how many students? Is it from K1 to 12, or because we're not sure, you know? And you said that you are preparing the full
Face-to-face.
face-to-face like in the next school year.
Yes.
So right now, still not yet full.
Not yet.
Or
It is, we are doing a hybrid system.
I
Uh,
see. Okay.
we have an alternate attendance of students. We have two groups. One group comes week 1 and week 3. Another group comes week 2 and week 4. So
I see.
our school is more than 2,000 students
Wow.
population.
That is a big school. Okay.
That includes nursery to senior high school. Actually, we went down. The peak of our enrollment reached around 4,000. Yeah, in
Wow.
many years past. Yes, but
Wow.
over the years we have declined, and just because of the pandemic, many families moved out of Metro Manila. When Metro Manila started to close, many families moved to the provinces, and then they opted to stay there in the provinces. Others actually had difficulty with regard to finances because
I see.
well, we have a bit costly uh, fees in the school.
Okay. So when is actually the start of your school year? Is it in July or is it in January?
Started During the pandemic, we started in August, but we slowly moved to July. And by this coming school year, we are starting mid-July or towards the last week of July.
Okay. Now the reason that you're still doing hybrid, is it still a big number
Because
of COVID cases in the Philippines, or it's
no,
just a
but
precaution?
we had we started with that way when we opened school year 2022 2023. So we didn't want to disrupt the system because changing it again would also matter to our parents, because some of them have already organized their lives in such a way that they would be sending their kids at least 2 weeks every month. And we also have problems with transportation just over the
Hmm.
past. So not all students were given the provision of a private school bus. So many of the school bus providers in Metro Manila have sold their school buses during the
Okay.
pandemic. So that's it. We had problem with the school bus service.
I see. Okay. Now we have one question for you from the audience, Father.
All right.
From Ipang Hadu. The question is, remembering that millennials and Generation Z prefers to learn with visual things based on Father Mao experience, what steps did you build to attract students' interest in reading?
All right. In the case of during the online classes, the teachers themselves made use of visuals that has been um, checked during the uh, Claret Operative Distance Education utilization, and so they had several tools to use in the navigating the MS Teams. So I think that the teachers themselves have been very creative in making use of the tools available and in MS Teams.
Okay. So you are trying to make the best of the tools, right?
Yeah. Teachers themselves have been teaching writing.
Mhm.
Younger ones, they had to make use of the iPad, and
Ah,
the 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 writing method has to be seen by the students themselves. So, well, we had to provide teachers for assistance in terms of additional monitors,
okay.
because
Yes.
it really demanded technology in terms of ensuring quality delivery of the instruction during the time
I
of the
see.
online
I
classes.
see. Okay, let's move to Doris now. We would like to know more about this PAC. Is this like, is it a part of government body or is it really an NGO? And how does it work? It's very interesting, organization.
Yeah, that's also what they say in the Philippines. It's an interesting organization because
Okay.
it is unique. Okay, it
Ah,
is a private entity. If you saw the 5 members, 3 are coming from private education. It is a
right.
collegial body. Therefore, the majority is really coming from private because definitely the leaning will have to be private ed. But with the
Okay.
executive order that created it was an executive order that created the PAC, signed by then President Ferdinand Marcos Sr.
Hmm.
It designated the DepEd Secretary as the chair and a representative from NEDA to complete the 5-man committee. So
Okay.
the opinion that we got from the Department of Justice about it is that it is a private entity. So all this time we have been operating like a private entity, which allows us to be
Okay.
more flexible and agile. But how is it
Okay.
possible that we're working with government? Every single year, a law is passed, which is the national budget. And in that budget, the PAC is mentioned as the organization that will work with the Department of Education in implementing the subsidy programs. So that's every
Okay.
year. That is how we're able to have a legal basis for us to be able to work with the Department of Education.
Okay. So does it mean that your funding mostly come from the Department of Education, or like
Yes.
different?
Well, for the programs of the Department of Education, it is
Uh-huh.
really the funding from DepEd. PAC co-implements. So there are
Okay.
implementation fees, no, from certifying the schools, creating helping them with filing documents, monitoring
Hmm.
compliance, quality assuring the schools, and all that. So there are implementation costs for DepEd. But after all
Okay.
of these are done, DepEd downloads the funds straight to the schools. So the
Mm.
funds are really not with the PAC. They are with DepEd, and these are given to the schools depending on how many grantees they have in the education
Mm.
subsidy programs.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay, we have another question from our audience from Aria. To all speakers, how can online education can shape up the student's character?
If I may answer first, uh, we continued on with formation programs online. So there are different formation programs that we have offered to our students. Um,
Mhm.
as I've mentioned earlier, there are masses online, recollections online, all of this is spiritual direction online, and
Mm.
there's also the homeroom program online. And as I've mentioned too, our clubs, student clubs, have been placed online. So we have clubs like the I Word Club for the high school, Claritian Peace Weavers Club and there's another club for high school, the Pro Life, the Young Catechists in Action. And for the grade school, we have the Religious Club, all of this, Young Earth Savers Club, uh, and then all other clubs that would actually develop their character as Claritians. So we were able to do that. We just shifted everything, almost everything online, except for the sports. But there are some PE classes still done, also done online during the time.
Okay, but you can see, I mean, it's quite effective, or still
Oh,
struggling.
well, there have been difficulties, of course, but it's really different when we do these things and engage activities face to face. So, what really matters now during the hybrid delivery of instruction is that we make sure that all of these clubs now are done face to face. But in an online setup, the question is during the online setup, um, we try to ensure that the advisors would continue to contact the students, follow through the students, and also the guidance counselors. So they've been very active during the online setup.
I see. Okay. Thank you. We have another questions from Banu Saja from our audience in YouTube, asking about how about the curriculum for education in the Philippines? Are you using the same curriculum for all schools? Like Indonesia, whether it's public school or private schools, must follow the national curriculum. And every time we change our minister, then the new minister will create another new curriculum. Is it like that, or more, like private schools can create their own curriculum? Only public schools follow the national curriculum. Can you explain that?
I'll try to answer that. Father Mao can add as well. There is a state curriculum, and that is
Okay.
called as the minimum. So all the schools are expected to comply with the minimum, which is the state curriculum. But because
Okay.
you're a private school, then you have your own philosophy, vision, mission, and you have an instructional framework that you may want to adopt and all that. So you can actually like marry the two, no? Your own philosophy, vision, mission, and that of the state curriculum, so that you will have a curriculum that is uniquely yours. For schools which are accredited, they should actually have more autonomy than those schools which
Okay.
are not accredited. Meaning those schools which have subjected themselves to voluntary accreditation by accrediting agencies, they should be given more curricular flexibility. But sometimes that also is not observed by government. Like right now, what is happening is that we are reviewing the curriculum, the K to 10 curriculum, and we're also reviewing, well, we've started the review at 11, 12. We're supposed to be releasing the results of K to 10 and then starting the review in 11, 12. Again, there's some agitation about it, no? Because if you change the curriculum, then you'll have to like also revise educational materials. You'll have to make sure that, your teachers are prepared given the changes in the curriculum and all that. But the DepEd is saying, or the Department of Education is saying, that this will be for implementation school year 24-25. But our problem really is not just the curriculum, not just the intended curriculum, because we keep on writing a curriculum, but we're really not very good at implementing the curriculum, and we also are not very honest in, I suppose, assessing what was achieved by that curriculum. See, when you think of curriculum, it's intended, implemented, and achieved. So we always look at what is intended without looking at what is implemented and what is achieved. For example, all our national achievement tests in the past, when we were conducting them, give us very poor results. And then we just keep on taking the test. And then it's like back to business. Like, nothing wrong with 30 to 40 scores that we were seeing for science and math. Until PISA came out, and what happened to the Philippines? Why are we at the bottom? I said, why aren't we at the bottom? We were 30 and 40 all these years in science and math. And then we also, we also are not very, very good at ensuring that our teachers prioritize teaching. The problem in our public schools is that our teachers do a lot of administrative tasks. In fact, there was one data analytics group which said that about 30 days of the total number of more than 200 school days in the Philippines are used for administrative tasks. So that means they're not implementing the curriculum.
Right.
So when we talked about, say, learning losses is not just forgotten learning. See, when you say you forgot it, it's because the pandemic happened, you went on lockdown, and you forgot, right? The students forgot what was taught. It's also possible that it's forgone, learning forgone. No one taught them that. They actually failed. They actually did not achieve such competencies, but we promoted them. Therefore, we call that forgone learning.
Right. Interesting. Anything to add, Father Mao?
Yeah, actually, we adopt the DepEd curriculum, but of course with enhancements, considering that we are private school and we are an accredited school. So we have several enhancements in our curriculum, but that's it. There are still problems that we have to address in terms of, again, monitoring, close supervision of teachers, in terms of delivering the curriculum.
Okay, thank you. Now, Doris, you said that there is a state minimum requirement, right, for the curriculum. Is that by subject or by content or by skills that like each grade must achieve like this level, this level, this level?
It is by subject or by content
Okay.
area. And then for each of the content areas, you have content and performance standards.
Okay,
So that
I see.
was the curriculum that was released, I think
Yeah.
several years ago, correct, Father Mao, when we started moving towards performance-based assessment and all that. And then when the pandemic happened and Congress was upset, they said, your curriculum is congested. Why don't you choose which are most essential? And so they again chose what is supposedly most essential. So everyone was saying, so what exactly were we teaching prior to the pandemic? So what we were teaching were not essential. So it was like you have the most essential learning competencies, correct, Father Mao, and then content and performance standards. So now the schools even have to align this, okay, so that they still are standards based, even while they are aligning with or making sure that they are able to achieve the most essential learning competencies that DepEd identified. But schools like Claret, actually, as I said, can always move in the direction which they think is best, because all they have to do is comply with the minimum coming from the state.
Right. One thing that really shocked me that you also mentioned that in the Philippines, one of the teachers' problem are doing a lot of administrative tasks, which is exactly the same problem here in Indonesia. So what is your suggestion? How we move away from this administrative task to more on the pedagogical task where teachers are supposed to do?
Well, really just a lot of political will, you get it done. Because I always say in the Philippines, we're at war. Now, this is not ordinary. We're not in ordinary circumstances. We're in a state of war. And it's a war against learning poverty. We're at the bottom, right? So what should we do differently? I mean, if you do things exactly the same way, will you not get exactly the same results?
Right. And that also happened for private school teachers, Father. Like also doing a lot of administrative tasks, not only public school teachers.
No, that's really for public schools. Because for private schools, we have guidance counselors, we have registrars, we have non-academic personnel.
Okay.
We have staff.
Okay. Now here, the problem is, or the say, whether they're private school teachers or public school teachers, they must do a lot of administrative tasks, because we're all doing the same curriculum, from the state, and same type of reports, like even they have to submit lesson plans, so like every teacher's doing, busy doing all these things rather than actually teaching, actually educating the kids.
Yeah.
So it's sad.
Yeah. But the next question we should ask really is, who's reading the reports?
Right.
Who's reading? I mean, who's doing the reading? Who's doing the data analyzing?
Nobody. It's just part. It's just part of, like, you have to do this. If you don't do this, then they have punishment. But nobody actually reading it. Even some teachers actually just copying off the internet. Like all this lesson plans, all these reports. That's what happened. So it's getting worse. I mean, it's not an education ecosystem that is, it's actually built. So it's sad, but that is what is happening in Indonesia, and it seems like also happening in the Philippines as well. And I like that we are at war. We are really fighting against learning poverty. I like that sentence, Doris. Thank you. Here's the thing that is I think this is going to be the last question, and it's something that really interesting to talk about.
Yeah, we'll make Father
From
Mao
Arya,
answer. Yeah, we'll make
how
Father
to
Mao
react
answer.
to the new tech chat GPT in education.
We'll ask Father
Please,
Mao
Pat.
to answer. Because if I'm
Okay.
at work, if I can just use Chat GPT for my admin reports.
Well, that's actually the challenge on authenticity, yeah, and
Right.
integrity in terms of the lessons learned or the projects submitted. Uh, but again, it it boils down to uh, seeing that this is a tool for uh, not actually to fool the teacher, but this should be a tool to gain probably additional knowledge or even additional information. Um, so we still have to we have to sit down to come up with guidelines on the use of chat GPT in terms of our school. And for our personnel, uh, this may be actually a good resource, no? If especially when the time allotment for some work may be limited. But again, uh, this should not impede the students and the faculty and staff to do more of personal reading and also to be more creative, uh, uh, at the least, no? Because yeah, that there's a big challenge if the students and the faculty would always go to chat GPT and seek the answers that they need, or even come up with the term paper or research paper that they would have to right. So again, we still have to sit down and discuss some of the um, norms that we have to adopt in terms of the usage of chat GPT.
But in your school,
One last
okay.
answer, Indra, before we leave. Technology is neither good nor bad. It's really how we use it. So it's technology. So
Right.
if it's meant to, if it's meant for, it's part of resourcefulness. No? That you can do the research using Chat GPT. You can start a first draft using Chat GPT. That's part of resourcefulness. Your
Right.
teacher should also realize that, right? However, if a teacher is a good teacher, he or she knows the student. So
Right.
you know whether the student wrote a term paper that the way it is written or it's Chat GPT, right? Or some other, your assessment should be Chat GPT proof, right?
Right.
For
Right.
example, I have like one class I know, actually my daughter's class, they have oral exams, even in calculus. Because after they did the problem solving, okay, they actually are asked by the teacher how they arrived at that answer. Of course, this is very tedious for a teacher, but orals will definitely show, right, that it's the students
Right.
who did the work and completely
Right.
understands it. So it's
Right.
really now on the teacher on how to make sure that you can keep the integrity of your assessments, that there is now Chat GPT, but make sure that you're able to like Chat GPT proof, right? Your
Right.
assessment and all the outputs of the students, or probably make them right in front of you, right?
Right. There's so many things to do now. Even like create an online, like a vlog, like a podcast. That is
Yeah,
chat GPT proof, like discussing about something, debate.
yeah. So the teacher should be creative that way.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Doris and Father Mao, for your time and your knowledge. We really can take a lot of things from both of you. Again, it's an honor for you to take time. I know you both are very busy. And again, thank you so much. So
Thank you too.
hopefully
Thank-
we can do this again some other time. It's good to learn from each other.
Thank you.
Sure.
Alright, thank you. Bapak Ibu sekalian, demikianlah acara kita Global Education Network Webinar Series kali ini. Memang semuanya menggunakan bahasa Inggris karena narasumbernya semua dari luar negeri. Dan kita akan kembali lagi di Global Education Network Webinar Series yang akan datang. Terima kasih, sampai jumpa lagi. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.